doing this episode is we will be showing you how to fill these up. We're going to show you how to make leftovers on purpose. On purpose? Yes. Sometimes you have leftovers after a dinner like our turkey meal. What we did, so we made leftover meals from that. But this works exactly the same way if you're making it on purpose.
Only you're making the dinners planning ahead.
Most of you, the time when you think of heating up a meal, you think of this. Well, we're going to show you how to make your own using these trays, which can be found at restaurant supply stores. Yes, you can find trays like these for yourself and make the meals yourself. One great top-notch advantage of making the meals yourself is this. You know exactly what's in here, down to the last detail. But you don't have to always make the food yourself. Sometimes you can have help. Yes, these guys do a good job. So, and it'll surprise you. Do the math. It's cheaper. Meals. They are sometimes very beautiful looking, but how good is this really for you? That's the question.
I'm not sure I trust something that I'm not sure what meat pieces they are.
Well, this is pretty good bet of what's in here. Sometimes you have no idea what kind of a piece of chicken it is.
Let's see, looks like we got a wing and nondescript piece number 1 and nondescript piece number 2.
Pie, I guess. We got some corn, some chocolate something, and taters. You'll find taters all the time in these kind of meals. Make your own. Make your own. It's so much better. I'm the king of taters, and I agree that making your own potatoes is better.
No matter how good a cook you are, there are going to be times when you don't have the time and resources to cook a meal. There's also the issue of what to do with leftovers. In the case of things like lasagna and casseroles, this is usually easy, as you can cover and store these in the dishes they were cooked in. In the case of other leftovers, it can be a bit tricky. There is a reason frozen dinners exist. Time and other considerations mean that you need dinner but lack the time to make it. This is what I'm going to cover in this episode, making your own TV dinners, or as I like to call it, leftovers on purpose. Even leftover casseroles and such can be used for this, but they're actually easier. Just portion and put them into trays. For our TV dinner, we are going to make, as well as the fried chicken, chicken fried steak, and chicken fried chicken. To go with these meals, we are going to cook up our own sides, which will be my mac and cheese and mashed potatoes. Gravy, when making chicken fried anything, is basically a given. We will cover that when we get to it. After all, nothing beats Sawmill Gravy.
Alright, well, let's make some dinners. I'll show you how quick this is. Get some chicken. Put it in the tray. Taters. Get yourself a biscuit. And some mac and cheese. We like mac and cheese.
KFC's mac and cheese isn't as good as mine.
It's pretty good, though. But the demonstration here is this is fast. This doesn't have to take very long.
Now don't forget the gravy!
Oh, no, I don't forget the gravy. Oh, you just package that up and freeze it.
Yeah, that's all there is to it.
Storage and freezing is very simple. You need a bag like these with a vacuum feature that lets you suck the air out. Very helpful. It not only reduces the volume, compacts things, it prevents freezer burn. That's something you don't want, because you want to eat these and you want to make them good. Now, you simply just put the meal in the bag. up. And then shrink wrap it. Suck the air out until it's to the desired amount of seal. If you've done this right, it will keep this seal until you open it again. Put it in your freezer and ta-da, you're done. From our meals, we have produced 15 of these beauties for later. All in a little less than an hour, so go to it.
And
fast food doesn't have to be slow.
And one more thing. If you bought 15 of these frozen meals, that would cost you $56. The KFC meal cost us $43, including the tax. If you had went with the chicken from the deli and made your own mac and cheese and potatoes to go with the meal, you would be at least $10 ahead at this point.
It doesn't take a country kernel to know that you may even be able to save even more if you go to your local supermarket and check out their deli section. Yes, kinds of sides and stuff. Get creative. As you can see here, you've not only saved money, you know exactly what piece of chicken that is. In addition to, you know what's in here. You put it in here yourself. I don't know what that is. Or that is. That looks like a wing, I think. I'll eat this one over this one any day.
Now it's time to talk about some important tools. When it comes to making chicken fried steak, there are two tools you're going to need. One is a meat mallet, and the other is a device called a needler. Now, you might see this on the shelf somewhere labeled as a meat tenderizer, but that's not what this does. In fact, this end here is pretty much useless. What you do with this is you flatten your meat. I'll show you how to do that later. But I want to cover, more importantly, this device. It's called a needler. And as you see here, it's got these series of blades. And when you take this device and you press it into the meat, the blades extend into the meat, tenderizing it. That's not what this does. This makes it thinner. This makes it tender by cutting up the little meat fibers in the meat. Keep in mind, you don't have to make this as a TV dinner. You can just make it for dinner as usual. Just only make enough portions for as many people as you are serving. Since both chicken fried steak and chicken fried chicken are pretty much the same thing on a basic level, we will cover the basics and then we will let you know where the two deviates. Start by cutting the roast into 1/2 inch thick slices and then place this into a bowl and cover with your buttermilk. Let this sit in the fridge overnight. You will do the same thing with the chicken. Chicken is a little less friendly, so if you're not going to do it immediately the next day, do the chicken in the morning before you start dinner. And it should be just right when you're ready to cook it. The next day, remove the meat onto a sheet pan over a rack. In one dish, mix together your flour, salt, spices, and black pepper. Okay. In a separate dish, mix together your buttermilk, and your eggs, and combine thoroughly. Now let's talk about breadcrumbs. Even if you ever take a walk in a Mega Mart, you will likely see plenty of cans of these lying about. I do have this can, but it's actually been a while since I've actually paid for a bunch of breadcrumbs. These things are just too easy to make myself, and I get to control the content of my breadcrumbs. How? Just take a loaf of bread. Leftovers are fine. But I got this loaf for just making into breadcrumbs. And just as a note, this costs just as much as this. This will fill at least 3 of this. It's your money, spend it the way you want. Anyway, when you consider how easy it is to make your own breadcrumbs, why ever buy these? When making your own is so simple and better anyway. Just slice up the bread you want to become breadcrumbs and let the bread sit on the counter overnight. The next day, put the slices a few at a time into your food processor. It's even easier if you cut them into cubes, and just pulse until you have the crumbs nice and fine. This way, not only will you always have fresh breadcrumbs, but you'll always be able to make sure that you have all you need. As a note, if you run out and you don't have any more stale bread sitting around, just bake a few more slices in the oven at 200 degrees until they are firm and treat them the same. In a third dish, combine the breadcrumbs, the baking powder, and the baking soda, and mix together well. We need a few bits of hardware. These include a needler and a meat mallet. Now take each piece of beef and on a cutting board or plate, use your needler over the surface multiple times, like you see me doing here. Then turn 90 degrees, do it again. Repeat on the other side. Spray down your cutting board with some water. Take a piece of plastic wrap. Spray that down with some water. This will help make pounding easier. Place your meat on the plastic. Fold the plastic over. A little more water. The meat carefully. Starting from the center and moving out. Make your blows slide like so. When you're done, return your meat back onto the rack and repeat with all the rest of the slices. Doing the chicken is pretty much the same, other than you won't need to use the needler. Just beat them nice and flat so that they are all the same thickness. The idea is to make them about a 1/4 inch thick, not into chicken paper. Make a little breading station with the 3 dishes like I have done here. Have a sheet pan with a rack in it as a final landing zone. Coat each piece of beef with a thin layer of flour and then dip them into the buttermilk mix and then coat them with the breadcrumbs. You're going to go from the breadcrumbs to the buttermilk to the breadcrumbs again and then onto your landing zone. something I should point out at this moment. When you do this, you want to use one hand for the dry section for the dipping, or one fork for dry, one fork for wet, one fork for dry. So you have your wet hand and your dry hand. Do not cross the streams, as this will reduce the buildup of breading on your fingers where you don't want it. You want this on there, not on here.
Now, why would you want to cover that with flour first anyway?
Well, the flour, because wet doesn't like to stick to wet, will make it so that the buttermilk mixture will adhere to the meat. And you see, wet doesn't like to play along with wet. For best results, use a cast iron pan with enough space for 2 or more steaks or chicken patties. Use only 2 to 4 tablespoons of oil, as that should be plenty enough to cover the bottom of the pan.
No, you must put more oil in. You need at least an inch deep to pan fry.
Heat it up until the oil begins to shimmer.
No, you must use an inch of oil to pan fry in order to cook it right.
Yeah, Chef Idiot, I heard you.
Get out! I want to cook it, not drown it. Enough to just cover the bottom of the pan is plenty. Cooking won't take long at all. Reduce heat and watch the top of the meat. When the juices are clear, turn over and finish the other side. Measure out 1 cup of milk and have a box of chicken or beef broth standing by. Now add 4 tablespoons of oil to your pan. I've already done this. And then stir into that 4 tablespoons of your flour mixture that you used. That's 5, 6, 7. Now I've doubled the amount of oil, so I doubled the amount of flour. Now stir this in and make a roux. Little chunkies of breading that came off of your chicken, now that's just fine to have in there, or your steak. When you get to a blonde roux, mix in your milk and bring to a boil. Add the milk and then add the broth to get you to the desired thickness. So you have to wait until it thickens to know how much of that you're going to need. Bring to a boil, because that's when you'll know how thick it's going to be getting. Once it's come to a boil, we'll tell you how thick the flour gets, and then you can top it off with any extra broth you need if it's too thick. But at this point, you're going to grind in some coarse ground black pepper, and then salt to taste. And your sawmill gravy is done. How does it taste, Ken? So put the salt in without saying so. Is it good?
Got a hunk of salt in that spoon.
That is good. That is sawmill gravy. Now assemble the dinners. Country fried steak, and then some gravy. The potatoes with gravy. See our second episode on the side. And the vegetables. These can be any frozen vegetables that you like. If you want to use fresh vegetables, you'll have to blanch them before using them. Blanching is easy. Take the veggies and dunk them into boiling water for 10 to 15 seconds, and then place into an ice water bath until you need to use them. The pre-frozen is going to be easier. They've done this already. If I have a spare compartment, I will sometimes add some pre-made muffin or cake mix as dessert. This is not required. Just make the meal with whatever tray space you have available. Pack in bags and pump the air out. Freeze and enjoy later. This is the reason why these vacuum Ziploc bags are so great. Once frozen, you'll have to reheat the meals you've made. This is easy. Take the meal out of the freezer and pop directly into a 350-degree oven and bake for 45 minutes. If you made the fried chicken meals the way we did, take out the biscuit and put it back in for the last 10 minutes. Admittedly, if I made the sides myself, they would be similar to the chicken fried dinner meals.